After the earlier incident, Sonvi genuinely wanted to turn her life around and rebuild her relationship with her mother. There were moments when she deeply regretted tarnishing the family's reputation and longed to restore her dignity. But everything changed in an instant. One day, her hand accidentally brushed against the driver's lower half. To her surprise, he didn't pull away. That fleeting moment awakened something within her, a spark she hadn't felt in years. It was as if her youthful energy, long dormant, had been reignited. Aditya, the driver, stirred emotions in her that she thought had dried up for good. Hello, and welcome to our channel. Today, we're diving into another shocking real-life event that reminds us just how unpredictable this world can be. This time, the story takes us to Ambala City, in the state of Haryana, India. Ambala City sits right on the border with Punjab and is close to Chandigarh, the state's second capital. Our story revolves around a man named Mr. Vikas, a retired officer from the land department. While Mr. Vikas enjoys the peace of retirement, his wife leads a much more active life. Not only is she still working, but she's also been busy pulling some mischievous pranks, except these aren't your harmless, everyday jokes. Her antics involve handsome young men in her workplace, and things take a wild turn. What's the full story behind this intriguing case? Let's dive in and uncover the details. Before we dive into the story, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share this story with your friends. It really helps us out. Now, let's get into it. The story goes like this. Mr. Vikas isn't very old, but after a heart attack in 2014, he decided to take it easy and stay home. His wife, Sonvi, on the other hand, is the complete opposite, full of energy and very active in politics. Since 2015, she's been a board member for the Department of Social Welfare, working on projects like building shelters for the homeless and supporting orphanages. Sonvi loves her work. She's constantly organizing fundraisers to help the less fortunate, and her passion for making a difference is evident to everyone around her. The couple has 3 children, all married, and 2 of them live in Patiala. Between their children and grandchildren, they have more than enough to live a comfortable life. In February 2017, Sonvi joined a private orphanage, where she worked closely with a man named Vahan, who managed the orphanage's daily needs. They often met to discuss work, usually alongside other staff members. It's worth noting that even at 55, Sonvi is vibrant, beautiful, and captivating. Her confidence and straightforward way of speaking have a way of mesmerizing people, and her sharp intellect earns her admiration from everyone she meets. While she isn't the head of the social welfare department in Ambala City, she's highly respected in the field and often out in the community, leading initiatives. Even male officials enjoy her company, finding her charm hard to ignore. Vahan, in particular, seemed to enjoy working with her. But things took a turn in February 2017, when Mr. Vikas gently confronted Sonvi about a report he'd received. Apparently, she had been spotted meeting Vahan at a hotel. Not once, but 3 times. What struck Vikas as odd was that no other officials were present during these meetings. When he brought it up, Sonvi was furious. She accused her husband of spying on her, insisting that the information must have come from their driver, Suresh. Sonvi dismissed the idea that anything inappropriate was happening. Does Suresh think he sees everything just because he's waiting in the parking lot? She fumed. Did he go inside to see what's happening at the meetings? She warned Vikas that if Suresh kept spreading rumors, she would fire him. Suresh, however, had only reported what he saw, as instructed by Mr. Vikas. He apologized, explaining that over the 3 trips, he only ever saw Vahan and no other staff from the social welfare department. Suresh made it clear that he wasn't making accusations, just sharing his observations. Still, Vikas couldn't help but suspect that there might be more to Sonvi's relationship with Vahan. The next day, Sonvi made a bold decision. She would no longer use a driver. She didn't want someone like Suresh spying on her every move. To her, it was normal for officials to meet at hotels or even restaurants and cafes. Why should her driver be there to stir up unnecessary gossip? A week later, Despite Vikas's protests, she fired Suresh. Her reasoning? She didn't need him anymore. Vikas barely left the house except for his monthly checkups, and even then, he could take a taxi or ask their son to drive him. Sonvi wasn't about to keep someone she felt was invading her privacy. Her decision upset both her husband and son. They tried to convince her to reconsider, pointing out that Suresh was 57 years old and might struggle to find another job. But Sonvi stood her ground, arguing that her personal boundaries had been crossed. Despite Vikas's objections, she refused to rehire the driver, saying that she would deal with the consequences herself. In early March 2017, the man finally quit his job. Just a week later, Suresh returned to his former employer's house, this time with a woman named Anika, who turned out to be Vahan's wife. Anika confronted Mr. Vikas, revealing that her husband had been involved with Ms. Sonvi. She backed up her claim with solid evidence. Screenshots of their chats, voice notes, and even hotel receipts, all allegedly paid for by the councilwoman. The fallout from this scandal was swift. Vahan resigned from the Panti development project after facing intense anger from his wife and family. Meanwhile, Sonvi apologized profusely to her husband, as did Suresh, admitting that she had made a mistake. The situation took such a toll on her that she was hospitalized the next day at Ambala City Hospital after experiencing a health scare. Mr. Vikas, desperate to contain the damage, begged Suresh and Anika to keep the incident a secret. To ensure their silence, he even offered them a significant amount of money. Everyone involved agreed to bury the scandal for the sake of their families' reputations. For the next 2 months, Sonvi stayed on leave, officially citing health issues. Fast forward, the incident never reached Sonvi's workplace. Her boss, unaware of the full story, was initially relieved when she returned to work. However, he grew concerned about her well-being, especially since she insisted on working alone despite her age and declining health. To ensure her safety, the head of the social welfare department assigned a driver and assistant, Aditya, to accompany her on all work-related duties. Aditya, a 31-year-old with a military background, was married to Kiran, a woman 7 years his senior, and the couple had a 4-year-old son. Apart from driving Sonvi and facilitating her meetings with local officials, Aditya was tasked with escorting her to regular health checkups. Sonvi had always been admired by her superiors for her social contributions. Her ideas had led to many successful projects, and during her 2-month leave, the office struggled because several projects stalled without her direct involvement. Despite the earlier scandal, her family supported her decision to continue working, as financial stability was crucial. Her youngest son and son-in-law were both unemployed, and Mr. Vikas' pension wasn't enough to cover their expenses. Aditya was confident that nothing inappropriate would happen again. He took his role seriously, believing in the importance of professionalism. With him by her side, Sonvi resumed her duties, determined to regain the momentum she had lost during her leave. In mid-August 2017, about 2 months after Aditya started working as Sonvi's driver, something strange happened. Sonvi disappeared. She didn't come home for 4 days, couldn't be reached by phone, and no one at the office knew where she was. Naturally, her boss and husband were furious with Aditya. After all, it was his job to keep track of her whereabouts and ensure her safety. But all Aditya could say was that on the night of August 7th, Sonvi had asked him to drop her off at her usual orphanage, take the car back to his house, and that she'd take a taxi from there. After that, she vanished without a trace. This caused chaos in the family. Was Sonvi becoming forgetful? Had she been kidnapped? Or was something else going on? The authorities got involved, launching a search on the morning of August 12th. But just as everyone's panic reached its peak, Sonvi called her husband and boss that afternoon. She reassured them that she was fine, explained she'd had a disagreement with a friend in Chandigarh, lost her phone, found it, and was now on her way home. She added that she'd be back at work on Monday and asked Aditya to pick her up from her house. While her words seemed to clear things up, her family found the story odd. Sonvi didn't have any friends in Chandigarh. She was born and raised in Ambala City. Most of her children and grandchildren lived in Patiala, and even if she'd lost her phone, she would have remembered to call using a landline. Why hadn't she done that? Her family began to suspect early-onset Alzheimer's and rushed her to Umballa City Hospital for tests. However, the doctor ruled out dementia, confirming that Sonvi's mind and health were completely normal. Adding to the confusion, her daughter noticed something peculiar when Sonvi returned home. She had brought back new clothes, many of which were uncharacteristically sheer. When questioned, Sonvi brushed it off, saying it was all she could buy since she'd left suddenly and didn't bring much with her. Though she gave multiple explanations, her family couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. They couldn't reconcile her strange behavior with the fact that she was only 55 and had no medical issues to explain it. A week after Sonvi resumed work, the mystery deepened. A staff member from the front desk of the Social Welfare Department received a call from the Panchkula District Police. The officer mentioned inconsistencies regarding Sonvi's disappearance. According to their records, she had never left Umballa City during those 4 days, contrary to her claim of being in Chandigarh. This prompted Sonvi's boss to ask Adifia to quietly investigate the matter. Check with her directly or visit the police station, he suggested. Let's figure out what's going on. But Adifia was dismissive, saying the issue was resolved and the most important thing was that Sonvi had returned safely. Still, the boss felt it was necessary to inform Mr. Vikas, Sonvi's husband. Out of curiosity and concern, Mr. Vikas decided to visit the police station himself. He wanted to get to the bottom of things, especially if his wife's behavior hinted at an undiagnosed health issue. The police escorted him to a hotel where they introduced him to a receptionist named Aryan, someone they believed might have answers about Sonvi's mysterious 4-day absence. Mr. Vikas went to the hotel with an officer and met Aryan, the receptionist. Aryan revealed that 2 weeks earlier, in mid-August, he'd read about Ms. Sonvi's disappearance in a local newspaper. Later that evening, reports confirmed she had been found after being missing for 4 days in Chandigarh. However, Aryan knew this wasn't entirely accurate. Ms. Sonvi had been staying at their hotel in Umballa City, not Chandigarh, since August 7th. Aryan described her as looking healthy but often wearing a mask while in the lobby. She had checked in and extended her stay using her own ID. Things got strange on the 3rd and 4th days when she was involved in a heated argument with a woman at the hotel's restaurant and later by the pool. The altercation escalated until a well-built man stepped in to break it up and ended up hitting the woman, who Aryan assumed was the man's wife. Curious and unsettled, Mr. Vikas took out his phone and showed Aryan a picture of Adifia, Sonvi's driver. Aryan immediately recognized him and confirmed it was the same man who had broken up the fight. To prove it, Aryan played surveillance footage from the hotel, showing Sonvi entering the building arm in arm with Adifia. The woman she'd fought with turned out to be Kiran, Adifia's wife. The realization hit Mr. Vikas hard. He clutched his chest in pain and had to be escorted home by the officer. For 3 days, he kept the discovery to himself, consumed by feelings of betrayal and humiliation. On Monday morning, unable to stay silent any longer, he went to his wife's workplace and reported everything to her boss. Shocked by the situation, the head of the Social Welfare Department called the police, and both Sonvi and Adifia were summoned to face disciplinary action. When confronted, Sonvi denied everything, claiming she had Alzheimer's and couldn't remember what had happened. Her explanation didn't fly. Both she and Adifia were sanctioned for their misconduct. Sonvi, furious with her husband for digging into her private life, accused him of playing detective. But Mr. Vikas refused to argue. He no longer trusted her, and the entire ordeal was too painful for him to revisit. For the next 2 days, Sonvi stayed home, unable to work or even step outside, as her children forbade her from leaving the house. Then, late one night at the end of August, tragedy struck. Robbers broke into their home through Sonvi's bedroom window. A masked intruder, armed with a gun, demanded money and then shot Mr. Vikas twice when he resisted. During the struggle, Mr. Vikas managed to pull the man's mask off before being overpowered and left unconscious. Sonvi's screams eventually brought help, and Mr. Vikas was rushed to Umballa City General Hospital, where he survived his injuries. A month later, after recovering, Mr. Vikas provided police with a description of the attacker. Sketches were circulated, and the investigation eventually led to the arrest of a 47-year-old man named Akash. When confronted, Mr. Vickers identified him as the culprit, bringing a small measure of closure to the terrifying ordeal. After investigating, the police found something odd about the window in Mr. Vickers's room. Ms. Sonvi claimed burglars broke in, yet there were no signs of forced entry. No shattered glass, no damaged hinges, nothing. Even more puzzling, despite injuring Mr. Vickers, the intruder didn't take any money or valuables. It seemed more like someone had willingly opened the window to let the attacker in. Under intense questioning, and after being threatened with consequences for his family, Akash, the perpetrator, finally broke down and confessed. He admitted he wasn't there to rob the house but had come to kill Mr. Vickers under orders from none other than his wife, Ms. Sonvi. Through his lawyer, Akash explained he worked as a hunter in the Dharmapur region and owned a collection of weapons. He'd met Sonvi in 2016 during a reservoir construction project and exchanged numbers. 2 days before the attack, Sonvi contacted him, instructing him to stage a robbery and execute her husband. She even transferred money as payment and assured him he'd be protected because of her connections in law enforcement. However, things didn't go as planned. Akash was caught, and when the police presented evidence of their text exchanges and the money transfer, Sonvi had no choice but to confess. She admitted she no longer loved Mr. Vickers, especially after his retirement, and had begun fantasizing about finding someone new to replace him. Her confession went even deeper. Sonvi revealed that her forbidden affair with Aditya, her driver, reignited her long-dormant passions. It all started when her hand accidentally brushed against him, and when he didn't object, her feelings grew uncontrollable. Over the next 2 months, their relationship intensified. During her so-called disappearance, she had purposely stayed at the hotel to spend time alone with Aditya. For her, he was the perfect candidate to replace Mr. Vickers. The problem, however, was Aditya's wife, Kiran, who caught on to their affair. Things escalated quickly when Kiran confronted Sonvi at the hotel, leading to public arguments over 2 consecutive days. Despite returning home each night, Aditya couldn't hide the truth for long, especially after Kiran threatened him with divorce and even physically assaulted him. Scared and unsure, Aditya remained silent. But the affair couldn't stay hidden forever. Aryan, the hotel receptionist, eventually reported suspicious behavior to the police, helping to expose the whole situation. Aditya admitted he had lied on Sonvi's orders, claiming to have dropped her at an orphanage the night she disappeared. When the trial began, Mr. Vickers decided to involve Anika and Suresh, further exposing Sonvi's past infidelities. It seemed he was done protecting her after she declared she didn't love him anymore. The revelations devastated their children, who broke down upon learning their mother had orchestrated such a heinous act. Meanwhile, the community turned its focus to the Department of Social Welfare, questioning why they'd hired someone like Sonvi in the first place. The department defended their decision, stating that her personal life wasn't their concern and that her professional performance had been excellent for nearly 3 years. We didn't know about her private behavior. We don't investigate what people do outside of work, they added. At the end of January 2018, the Ambala City High Court reached its verdict. Akash was found guilty of assault, attempted murder of Mr. Vickers, and illegal use of a weapon. He received a maximum sentence of 15 years in prison. Ms. Sonvi, identified as the mastermind behind the crime, was handed an even harsher punishment, 25 years in prison. Aditya, on the other hand, was not penalized as he had no knowledge of the murder plot. However, his involvement in the scandal didn't leave him unscathed. He was dismissed from his position and, along with his wife and children, relocated to Jagjit Nagar to start over. What lessons can we learn from this story?